The world is changing dramatically, Brian, but very,
Mhm.
very few people know it. Now, this audience, being science oriented, might be a little more on top of things, but in general, I'm finding even a lot of engineers and scientists have no idea what a big deal it is that these robots are coming. You're going to
Mhm.
be talking a lot about that today. I'm pretty excited.
Right.
I'm Randy Kirk. This is Brian Wang. He's the scientist. I'm not. And that's how we play the game on this channel. So, Brian,
Mm. Yeah.
what in the world is going on with these bots? I can hardly wait to hear what your theories are today.
So yeah, we're going to talk about Tesla bots, which your the Tesla community, which we do a lot of videos for, are well aware of it. But there's a lot of things going on that going over the competitors, which I'll go over, and also how things are absorbed into it. Not just like doing the charts where we say, okay, we go from very little and we get to a billion bots, and then all that kind of money. I think the near term aspects of how this play out is important thing to look at, and then to try and think about based on the information we have on the AI and the training and stuff like that, to try and see what conclusions we can come to. So
So
that's what I want to discuss. Yeah.
all right. So
Go
there,
ahead.
so what we a lot of people in the Tesla community have been talking about this difference between whether the bots need to be set up to do specific tasks so that they would be ready to go right now. I mean,
Mhm.
literally, most
Yeah.
people in the community think that the Optimus and several of the other bots could go out and do very specific tasks right now,
Mhm.
or whether they need to be more set up for general, like kind of a general understanding of their environment, how to work with humans, uh,
Mhm.
not get into trouble, not make mistakes, and be able to be used for multiple tasks. And some
Mhm.
people think that at least a couple of these, that Optimus in particular, but a couple of the other companies might be trying harder to get to this kind of a general use case before they really go into selling them. Is that kind of where you're going with this today?
We can discuss some of those aspects of it. I hadn't prepared slides. We may need to revisit this particular topic. I have some comments about that because there are those industrial robots with just the big arm. There's the Roombas and those kind of things, which they had a cap out. Like, okay, we got 15 million of them, that 15 million that people bought per year globally. So there's a lot of these narrow niche bots. So there's clearly a utility to them, but then you can cap out and not have the full impact that you're going for. That if you have the big prize of, and in the interviews with Factory AI, robot company who I've spoken to the CTO and CEO before when they were at D-Wave, and I've spoken at some other conferences, but not recently. I've also talked to their, the person who funded them and that kind of stuff. So I know a lot about what they're doing in the goals. But on the videos that they just had with Herbert and with um, John Gibb, Dr. Nodal,
Right.
our co-author on the book, um, um, the CTO, and then Gildert was talking about how they want to replace all labor and
Right.
to go at, and they have a plan towards doing that.
Right.
So there's a question of like this balance in the near term versus the long term, and how to get there. Some of the things that we're discussing are what is um, too small, what is maybe too big, and what's the just right of what do you want to achieve in 3 to 5 years, right? What would be something that would really move the needle, and what does moving the needle mean? I think that's the kind of thing I want to try and get at. It'll take more than one video. It's a deep topic.
Okay. All right. Well, let it go. Let's see what you got.
Okay, so let me get my deck up. Okay. Uh, Sorry, let's get my. No, I have the wrong one up here. Do I have the wrong one up? We'll have to cut this out maybe. New share, wrong one. PowerPoint slide deck share. Okay. Okay. So we discussed this before that the super AI AGI is too valuable. It's something that's a lot of money is going to be spent on it, and it's a inevitable path. That's what Sam Altman has said. So that is about he's trying to like $7 trillion for um, putting into AI. Talking to the UAE, there's some videos of him being really chummy with the UAE head of AI. They're like best buds talking about stuff. So UAE has like these huge, several nearly $1 trillion sovereign wealth funds, and basically saying $7 trillion, you put like all your money into it, which is a bit strange because TSMC, if you replace them, they're putting $30 billion a year into capex, and it would be you have to like make $50 billion. Like how fast can you spend that money? But for us, the main thing is Sam is buying robotics companies. He's invested in human robotics companies, and he has basically these unlimited funds. Him, Microsoft are going into this, and they're competing with all the other big tech guys. Amazon, Facebook. Everyone's putting all this money into AI, and robotics, humanoid robotics, will be a huge factor in what they're going for. So when we go to these charts, like here, the humanoid robotics company, have you back in mind that big tech, AI, is all competing the same thing. They are coming. Like all the things we were saying, Apple will finally make an electric car is, I think, perhaps more true that people will make various kinds of robots. Because if you're replacing all labor, that's a huge thing.
Yes, yes.
So GPT-5 is going to be coming out soon. Sam's saying this will be smarter and better. And then the chips will be for the GPT-6 something. Like he is invested in Rain AI, which makes neuromorphic chips, which are analog. So not digital, but analog kind of things. So Rain AI should come out with a chip in October, and supposedly it'll have 100 times more efficiency in some way, energy efficiency, stuff like that. But there'll be more of these custom chips because NVIDIA is getting like 70% margin. So it's like they make $28 billion and their profit's like $18 billion.
Right.
It's like, they're triple, a normal margin, which is one of the reasons all the tech guys want to break free, right?
Right.
For the context of the human and robot thing is that unlimited billions coming and custom hardware for all these goals to accelerate the development of humanoid robots.
Got it.
This also involves memory. So something that people might be aware of is high bandwidth memory, which is basically stacked DRAM. So DRAM is the compute memory that's been around for forever. There's DRAM, which is the bulk memory that we use that's not hard drives. And then there's SRAM, which is the fast stuff that's either on or right beside the chip. And then high bandwidth memory is stacked DRAM. So I make a chip and I have layers of it that are DRAM memory, and that's the high bandwidth memory. For the NVIDIA H100, the most desired chip out there for AI, it has 6 high bandwidth memory chips right in the same package, right? Because it needs to have all that memory. The M300 or whatever chip from AMD, possibly faster in some ways, has 8 high bandwidth memory chips right around it. There are 3 main companies there: Samsung, SK Hynix, 2 Korean companies, and then Micron in the US. They each have roughly about a third of the high bandwidth market. And then SK Hynix just did a deal with TSMC where the next generation, HBM4, coming in about 2026, they're talking about putting it on top of the GPU. They want to make the memory even more tightly coupled to the chip. So they have to have solve some heat issues. So anyway, again, chips, memory faster, everything changing, huge efforts to um, handle the need of the AI hardware side of things.
Okay.
So that, like I said, SK Hynix did this AI memory thing. Microsoft is doing agent AI that they announced. So this is like AI that does actions. So it can decide things and then try to do stuff to get more independent. So you can see that the AI and large language models are becoming more robotic in that they're become like virtual things that decide and take actions, right? So that is involved in the simulations and with the thing, but basically the line between is a large language model versus it's AI in a bot will get blurred and then come together because they will be having AI that virtually do things for you. You have
Okay, so right now you've got AI in the large language models, ChatGPT, et cetera.
Mhm.
When you talk to it, it talks back. That's an action, right?
Yeah.
So it's already doing actions now. You're talking about going the next step, which is to take a physical action, some kind of like
Hmm.
like
Right.
self-driving does, or like these robots are now doing.
Right. So they have the AI in the games, gaming VR.
Oh,
So
yes.
the age it will act in the games. You see this picture of the game, and then they're putting it into healthcare, where it's diagnosing and embodying it. So it's going into like a health device monitor. So the actions are I'm taking input from something, could be from a game, could be from a physical action, and I'm doing another decision. So like, okay, you give it a question, you can say, okay, um, figure out my travel plan for visiting wherever vacation spot, Tokyo or something like that. So the typical large language will give you this list of 10 things, it could give you links to it. But then it could say, okay, if I have an AI agent, it could say, okay, let me go book and price these out for you in real time, right?
Right.
So I could then do queries to things. And then based upon that, it can say, okay, here's the best two. It could do a lot more, continuing reactions,
Right.
a chain of things going on, not just you give me question one, I answer it. You give
Right.
me question two,
Right.
I answer it. They have a chain of thought where I can like give me question one, and I'll do another thing based upon what I just gave you, right? So
Got it.
then they're iterating back and forth upon this thing. But it's like they are saying that the agent will do robot manipulation and actions. They're merging together the fundamental tokens of it. So it's like I'm looking at a uh, one text token,
Mhm.
and then I can also have a video token. So I'm
Mhm.
analyzing frames of video. So the underlying core of all the AI is going to text, video, real world actions. It's all coming together fundamentally. It's not like I have any separation in there inside the mind of the AIs.
Right. Right.
So it has memory learning. So it's like cognition and consciousness. It's planning and perception. So it's like doing all these things that would lead to action. This is, like Microsoft doing this thing and just, announce this AI agent thing. So
Right. Right.
all the other competitors are going to do the same thing. But this is what I'm saying, that the robot, the devices, the cars, everything is going to blur together. It's going to be one big AI competition
Right.
and changing everything on that.
Cool.
So unlimited funds, it's all
Yeah.
blurring together. But I just want to say that, I'm not making it up. It's
Yeah.
like, it's uh, all the things they're announcing and doing this is what's happening.
Okay.
So, okay, let's get to the point where we're comparing everything. So some of the other people have compared to, and we're looking at all the companies. Of course, we've got Tesla, and then we have the name of the bot that they have. And I'm looking at hand quality actuators, actuator factory, bot factory, all neural and visual learning. Because it's how do we tell the difference between the various bots? Because they look humanoid, and I'll say, what do we need to look for that's different? And The hands, this is what Sanctuary AI talked about. They're a hand first company that's gone through many iterations on that, and it's the different actuators. All the companies have been there a while. Apptronic's been there for about 7 years. They're focused on the hand because that is most of the actions. So who's got the good hands? I think Tesla has good hands. Sanctuary AI has very good hands. Figure AI has okay hands, pretty good hands. Agility Robotics doesn't have hands. That's they have these ones where they're stubs,
Uh-huh.
where basically they're moving boxes. They may be developing hands off to the side, and I would expect they would, but based on the current state of a recent video, do they have pincers, which is like no fingers, but like a thumb or whatever. And so the ones with good hands are Tesla, Sanctuary, Figure, Aptronic, Fourier, and Kepler have decent hands. Haven't seen the hand action enough. I think Aptronic may actually have a good hand. I've seen some videos. They seem to be on that. I would be surprised they didn't, because they've been around for a while working on these things. And all the ones with hands, I should probably flip the actuator thing to yes on it. If they have hands, you're working on your own actuators to make them smaller so that the knuckle size and stuff where the thing is moving
Uh-huh.
is better.
So when
And
you're
then they have to make, go ahead.
so when you're saying actuators, are you saying that they have actuators, or are you saying that they're designing their own actuators? What does the actuator column mean?
Yeah, they're designing and making their own
Oh,
actuators.
okay.
Right. And then the actuator factory, if they're getting to the scale where they, substantially making some level of mass production of actuators.
Okay.
And that'll be a gray line. We need to get more details, and that will be all these things will be fast moving targets where
Right.
the leaders will make, like, figure Agility Robotics talking about making 10,000 bots in a factory, right? That these companies will move towards that. So that's a question of like, how fast are these guys going? Because Sanctuary AI and Aptronics, where they have been trying to conserve. I only got $30 million, only got $100 million. I need to not go crazy spending all this money because they don't have the customers and stuff yet. So they're trying to like balance actual revenue, doing work for car companies, doing some consulting things, and then making their bots. And they're saying, okay, we got these 10 bots, like Figure putting 10 bots into BMW, right? Their factories
Right.
is a nice test. It's a necessary step. And they're all talking about these kind of small 10, 20 bot pilots, right? So then if I have like 5 of them, 3 to 5, total, I would have 100 bots, right? So I've moved towards that this year, next year.
Mhm.
That would be the scale of a normal business at this level. But if things start changing this year, where Figure AI gets $500 million from Microsoft and OpenAI, 1X Technologies in Norway gets a bunch of money, from, and it could even all come from a Sam Altman led thing, because he can be involved in a bunch of the companies
Right.
just because he gets so much money. He doesn't care. I'll invest in all of them. I don't have to pick one winner. I can have them all do it and come together for its M&A, do whatever, right? But go ahead.
I was going to ask, isn't there really 2 questions with regard to the factory, though, or maybe even 3? One is, do they have one at all? Do they have an immediate plan for a factory?
Yeah.
Obviously, none of them have an absolute production line set up rolling at this time. So do they have an actual plan for a factory might be one question. Number 2, do they have any manufacturing experience which would make us believe that they could even produce it's not a matter of anybody can build a factory, I suppose, but there's a question about building a factory that could be effective and efficient enough to even compete in this world. And then number 3, the financing to do it. So I think you might have, 3 separate questions there.
Right. Well, even more than that is that because I expect this to take off with multiple companies getting $500 million, $1 billion this year, and then even more money because it's part of this overall thing of AI, right? Then also that they don't have manufacturing now. They get bought by Toyota,
Right.
right? Or Toyota lumps in with Facebook, right? So if you have $1 billion coming in, then the barriers, it's not gonna be like, I'm gonna sit here working on my own thing with my $100 million, half billion dollars, and I can't build a factory, I can't do this because of whatever. It's like, if you can't do it, someone's gonna buy you, slam you into another thing, and then you're gonna do it. If you have, you know, interesting technology, then I people won't wait around for being too slow. They're going to be forced to go fast.
Right.
So the fact that some companies, are cautiously saying, like in the interview with something Gilded, okay, we'll have 1 million robots by 2030, but we're talking about doing 10 now, 100 next year.
Right.
It's all good and plausible, and you're going to be not wasteful with money. Nice, but if just like large language models, where ChatGPT comes out and then suddenly $10 billion goes into there, and then Anthropic raises $4 billion, and they're all, making zetaflop supercomputers to do all the training and stuff like that. All their slow plans get junked.
Yeah.
Because until the money situation changes, they can't say, okay, I'm going to assume this happens.
Right.
Brian can say it's going to happen, but until they get the checks in the bank, the money in the bank, they can't change the plans and go crazy. They could have the plans. They could not discuss them. In the private pitch meeting, when they raise the money, they can talk about them. But when they're on the balance of, it's going to take off, I believe it's going to take off, but then they have not and will not go crazy yet because they don't want to, piss the money away. But so on this list is, you got XPeng, one of the other electronic car companies. They made something that looks like the Honda Asimo. That robot's been around for forever, that just walks around, does stuff.
Right.
It doesn't, the hands are not impressive and stuff like that. That can all change quickly. Like 3 versions ago, 1 year ago for the Tesla bot, it looked cruder, but then, rapid development. But all the Chinese car companies, EV companies, copy everything Tesla does. They go to GigaCast and go to everything. They're not going to not follow on humanoid bot, right? They're going to follow that too. China has said humanoid bot is a big thing, so they will ramp up their AI and they'll all get into it. So I expect by next year, 50 companies from China will be here. You already got several, but more will emerge.
Right.
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 And just like, okay, there's only blah 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 BYD 8 years ago, whatever like that. It's like
hundreds, yeah.
hundreds will get into it, right? So same thing here, that the number of companies on it, and then the leaders will be with AI. They'll be affiliated with, Microsoft, Facebook, Tesla, stuff like that.
Sure.
And then there'll be an Amazon. Amazon has 1 million bots of other kinds. So this will change rapidly. It's a snapshot of where things are.
Right.
Yeah. So then this is a more traditional view of things, look at the funding. I say that Tesla has over $2 billion in funding because they're building upon the foundations, infrastructure-wise, video training-wise, of FSD, and they have the visual data, right? And they have all the hardware and chips on that end. Plus the dojo training would be in common. They're building a $500 billion thing there, and then they're building the about $3 to $4 billion probably of NVIDIA H100 and other chips. Essentially, I had about $90 million. Suzanne talked about getting some funding soon. Figure AI. Some people say they only have $70 million. They don't realize that the Brett Adcock, the CEO, put in $100 million of his own money.
Yeah.
So he has $170 million. He, serial entrepreneur, he had a kind of supplemental technology staffing company first, got bought by Adecco, international staffing company. It was called Vettery. And then he had Archer Aviation, which is a flying car. So then he's got some exits out of those or sold some stock, and then he's put that into the humanoid robot that he's doing, which is now done with BMW. Agility Robotics, they are working with Amazon. And they're the ones with the again, the stubby things. There's several of these ones that if you look at the common view, they don't have hands, they have like the nub of this microphone at the end, thing to cut off the wrist instead of a foot. Again, they have um walking in peg legs,
Right.
like a pirate. And then 1X technology, Eve and Neo, they have one version that rolls on wheels.
Right.
Then they have the upper body with the hands and stuff like that, but then it rolls on wheels and doesn't have the walking. So they've, where they've focused on one aspect or another of it. And so most of the others have 20 to $100 million. But the funding will change rapidly. Like someone could get funding right this quarter because the funding situation changed rapidly. Boston Dynamics has had over $3.8 billion of funding, but they have been doing these like focused on more stunt type things,
Right.
like video and acrobatics, and then doing the dog thing. So they have not been hyper focused on, getting things into the humanoid bot format or to do industrial or to scale,
Right.
despite the amount of money that they've had. There's also some others who I haven't included on this list where Amica, where they have a face thing, or also the Sophia bot, which was on 60 Minutes and stuff like that, which was talking. Those ones I think are more like Disney animatronics,
Uh-huh.
right? So they're like highly technical, more puppet-like things. But there's utility to those things if you did real teleoperation, but with a bridge into AI. But anyway, for now, they're not. I don't consider them sufficiently with enough AI foundation to include in here. Like not the right AI. So then here's the Sanctuary AI humanoid bot. And they're trying to put it in there and do, again, all jobs. So they had a research paper where they looked at the Bureau of Labor Statistics type database called ONET, Occupation Network database. And they looked at, the over 1,000 jobs. And they looked at the 19,000 plus tasks that make up those jobs. So then a job had the kind of like a fingerprint of it does 25 different tasks making up a sales job,
Yeah.
a sales clerk job. And then they looked at that, Sanctuary looked at that and said, okay, let me break each of the tasks down into separate actions. I move my hand, I reach out, I grasp something, I type something. So they break each of those actions down into component pieces so that it's like they call it the alphabets of the action. So it's like you have a limited number of actions. They didn't say the number. Let's say it's 200.
Mhm.
Then 20 things make up grasping something, right?
Right.
And then you can have a database to analyze how, as I do each thing, how I can like put it together into phrases of tasks and then paragraphs of a job.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
but it's basically going for everything.
Right.
So this is Sanctuary AI's robot. The Phoenix, look closer up, and then you can see that their hand is quite sophisticated and has a lot of things to it. And then each of the small components at the knuckle joints are the actuators.
Right.
So here we have the Tesla bot one with this hand, and then there's a figuring out. Unfortunately, cut off the hand. It's a bit bigger. The figuring out. Oh yeah, we have it here. So then it's a slightly larger hand. So in terms of the sophistication of bots, one of the prime things is to look at the quality and the dexterousness of the hand
Hmm.
to see how well it's doing things.
Sure.
And then here's the Apollo bot, Aptronics, 7-year-old company. So the hand is moving the bot so they can kind of locked in place. And then in the video, you can see it again doing some kind of like dexterous hand action on it. So it's pretty sophisticated on that aspect. So that's kind of a snapshot because so there's things to look at is look at the hands and is the AI there? How much data are they gathering? and can they train fully from video? There's various things to look at to see how close they are. But then it's because people have been working on for intensively for a year or two. When people get a lot of money and get people in, companies can't catch up. So it's difficult to say, I'm doing a pilot with 10, you're doing a pilot with 10. It's that confusing thing of just like looking at all these self-driving car companies, right? Who's ahead? And I'm going to discuss why Tesla had the advantage to get to the major scale beyond the pilot test phase because I can do 20 different pilot test phases and I get like a little bit of money, but that doesn't even justify my first $1 billion, right? Because until I get to a whole factory and stuff like that, I don't make real money. I could justify further investment. I can say, okay, give me $500,000. And that's what's happening with the self-driving cars, where we spent like $150 billion on 40 companies, various companies burning $2 billion, $3 billion a year, Waymo, Cruise, etc., and then only getting a few $1 million in rides, right? It's doing it, it's getting to the point, I got 100 taxis, robo taxis, without drivers, but then it's still less than 1%.
Right, not scalable.
Right, not scalable. It's less than 1%. I'm still like losing 99% of the money that I'm spending every year. So, but you may need to go through that phase. But then how can you get to adoption, impacting, and making money on that?
Okay. And
so
so are you going to talk about what Tesla's advantage is now, or is that going to be in a separate video?
I can talk about some test advantage now, but we can talk about it more in another video. But
okay,
I'm going to talk several points now.
Okay.
So Tesla fans and people focusing on it will know a lot about digital self-management. Joe Justice, who used to work there on the Agile team, talks about how in the factories, Tesla's factories, they have these monitoring to every work group, like the paint area, where they could say, I'll come up to the system and it'll scan and give a score and say to tell the workers, the paint's only 80%. Here's the flaws, do the remediation to fix them, bring it up to like 95 to be acceptable or something like that. So everything within the Tesla factory is digitized for that. And they have apps on their phones, which then tie into, I do whatever action in the factory, and then it will have this impact on the overall Tesla bottom line. So it feeds into it all. So in terms of being ready to have, a digital robotic worker, all the systems in the Tesla factory and the entire company have been digital. And the digital self-management aspect of it is giving a training score. If I put in a robot, I have a training score that can say, this action, this task is already digitally scored. And it's the tests and everything are all combined in there. And when they start building a car, they put in the screen, the main central computer screen, among the first thing they put in, based on the frame of the car, because they plug in other sensors, other things, and it will do a test and see, did you plug that in correctly? I need to run a quick check. So it starts testing as the car is being built.
Right.
So one of the first thing they do is the brains and the hardware checking for everything else. So again, that's something that's highly useful for a fully robotic human and robot factory.
Right.
But the other guys would have to start fresh. They'd have to make an entirely new factory, make entirely new processes, which took Tesla, 10 years to get to this point, right? 12 years to get to 15 years to get to this point, starting from the ground up, starting with the goal in mind or something like that goal, and then being able to do that. So it's ready to accept, and they change the process all the time, where they can make changes to the cars, to the manufacturing process 1,000 times a week, while other car makers need to plan that out, do a model year every 4 years for a major change. They're not ready to adapt and change in a fully digitally robotic world.
Right. And Brian, part of that, and maybe you were going to say it already, but part of that is because they are vertically integrated. And by vertically integrated, we mean they basically make huge numbers of their own auto parts in-house. And then they also have the 14th or 15th best supply chain in the world. And when they go to a supplier and work with the supplier has to be also agile. They also have to be able to make these changes very, very rapidly. Most companies aren't set up that way. Most companies don't have enough volume to be able to insist on that from their suppliers. But when it comes to the bot, Tesla is almost 100% vertically integrated already. They've already said that they're going to be making almost every part of the bot themselves. So they're going to have very few suppliers on the bot. And that means they can make these changes very, very rapidly within the organization. And it means that they have some benefits in terms of costing, as well as making the product exactly to what their specifications, exactly what they want them to be, rather than having to modify something that's already being built.
Right. So the other bot makers, making a new bot, they can say, okay, we need to also make our own components. We need to make our own software, which is fine for them on the bot side. But if I'm working with a car company going into BMW, going into Ford, then they, as a customer using it, cannot adapt as quickly. They cannot say, I'm going to go to 20,000 bot workers, with 5,000 human workers, because I can't change my line. I can't do that. I'd have to and they may have to say, okay, I have a completely empty factory, and then we can start fresh. We go, Blue Ocean or whatever, start from scratch and do everything all over. But then they have not built the software, all the things that integrate. It's like the most complicated traditional business operation software is called SAP, German software system, where it's like people haven't used it. It's like it's an operating system for your entire company, right? Where everything that goes into accounting, into manufacturing, tracking every nut and bolt, and then you have to do it the SAP way to run the company. But it takes 2 or 3 years to install. Even to even get it up and running at a basic level, it takes 2 or 3 years, because I got to transfer this file, do this stuff. It takes a bunch of time even to install it, let alone the time it took to build it and perfect it, right?
Brian,
But
let me tell you a quick story on that. So I installed SAP at my factory.
Okay.
I also went to UCLA Law School, the 9th best law school in the world. In the first year of law school, they say, look to your right, look to your left when you're sitting in the classroom. Look to your right, look to your left. One of you won't be here at the end of the year. The first year of law school was the hardest thing I had ever done until I installed SAP at my factory.
Right.
So imagine now what you've got is you've got these guys that are scientists, they're engineers, et cetera, et cetera. That's their background. Their background is not putting in computer systems. They've got to put in something like that SAP, which will be outside of their kin and take maybe 3 years, as you pointed out, in order to put it in right. These are the kinds of things when you look all around the factory, it repeats and repeats and repeats. Oh, sure, we're going to make our own actuators. Have you ever made an actuator before? It's not a simple product. I'm going to do my own 3D printing of plastic parts on this product. Have you ever done 3D printing before? Have you ever? Yes. So every one of these will be new to them. Whereas for Tesla, all of this stuff is like a walk in the park.
And the thing is, Tesla's system, digital self-management, is real-time SAP. And it goes even multiple layers deeper than everything that SAP does.
Right.
So it's like 10 times more complicated, but what complicated in terms of being able to track everything, but actually simpler than what SAP does, more flexible, more adaptable. Right. It's this next generation version of this operating system for the factory integrated with the operating system for the company. Right. So with the real-time tracking, a learning system. So that is something that will enable them to adapt quickly. But it's like it's not just this software and the processes, the software and processes, and then it's redesigning the factory process entirely with the unboxed process, which is made more human and robot friendly. And so and also redesigning from the ground up, right? And this is not just Tesla saying it's going to happen. It is Caresoft, a company with about 1,500 people that analyze and break down cars, much like Sandy Monroe does. And the Caresoft people did two major videos. One where they interviewed like the CEO, talking about the unbox process, how they used 100,000 man hours of work to determine exactly how much savings Tesla would get from it, and said it was like 30% over the efficiency of the Model Y factory, which is, they said, the most efficient factory by a lot, even over the Toyotas. And then they also had the Autoline video where they had a worker take a Model Y that was not fully assembled and then snap in the pieces. So both those things were Caresoft, where they got insights into that. You've seen that other Autoline video that
Did not see the second one yet, no.
oh, the one also the second one I'm talking about was actually before the previous one. So Autoline talked about the modular manufacturing and stuff. And basically, if the guy at a trade show with some gloves on, assembling 10% of the car, 15% of the car in like 20 minutes. Oh, I snap this in, no bolts, or I snap this in, it can only fit in one way. So it was about how Tesla had designed the process to be so much more labor efficient,
Right.
From the ground up for every part. And then you can only fit in one way. The bolts come in from the top. It's just like, it was, this, what Toyota ended up saying, Toyota engineers ended up saying was a masterpiece of engineering. And then they're doing that for the whole factory, not just the car design, but also they redesigned the car and they designed the factory and the factory processes and they've already done it already. And they're like, with the gigacasting, and now they're redoing it with the unbox process, which they've been working on for a year and a half or 2 years, something like that, to get to something where they break it up into this parallel construction process. And by going parallel, instead of having 2 or 3 bots climbing into the frame of a car, they're taking 8 separate pieces that, front, rear, side panels, having 4 or 5 bots work around it, and then at the end, you snap them together. So instead of taking, say 10 hours, 8 hours to go from beginning of the factory to the end of the factory with the current process, which is 3 times better than some of the Volkswagen cars taking 24 hours to get through the process.
Right.
It could take maybe 8, 1 hour for each module, and then they snap all together.
Right.
So like the step level of efficiency change that's possible, but it's only because someone like Tesla can like redesign the entire manufacturing process and to meet the robots halfway. It's like the robots can do this. I'm going to change the process and do this. 1, because it's better anyway. And then 2, and they'll come together into, in this integrated system. So the other manufacturers can't make the factory changes, the software changes, because Tesla controls all those parts.
Right.
And the machine that makes the machine, all that kind of thing, in order to say, and now I'm going to integrate it completely to get to a fully bot-enabled factory that is 30% more efficient on margin, and perhaps 2 times, 4 times more efficient on production.
Yeah. So on the one hand, you're saying that Tesla, with regard to their existing auto manufacturing, they are now designing their lines around the introduction of Optimus bots to come in and do things. I think for 2, you're saying that when they set up their robot production line, and Elon has even said this, that Optimus will eventually be building Optimus. So they're setting that line up brand new right now for the very first time. They've already hired the people. They're already designing the line at this moment as we speak. they will also design that line to be ready for robots.
Right.
And then the number three part of this is when you're going out to the customer. And by the way, it's true of all automation. When I automated aspects of my factory, you often have to redesign your factory to take into consideration the new automation that you're bringing in. So this is not a new concept, but it may be a lot more so when you're talking about bringing in a fully autonomous humanoid robot, where you want the job that they're doing to be simpler for the robot than it would otherwise be maybe for a human. A human might be willing to stretch up all the time to get something on a shelf. Maybe for a robot, you don't want to, I don't know, that's just like pull that out of the air type of idea. But whatever
Yeah.
it is, you might want to redesign the workspace and redesign the actual job to make it robot friendly.
Right. So in terms of the top manufacturing companies in the world, this is a list from 2022, Apple being the top, Toyota. So automotive is in the top for all the biggest companies there. For the total number, it's about $16 trillion of the global economy that's manufacturing, depending on how you slice it. And then automotive is around 2.6 trillion dollars. And so then a lot of it is electronics and other things, but they tend to be smaller companies. So in terms of the big companies, the big weight, it's electronics, it's automotive, and it's pharma, metals, and other things. So then there's other ones that are making big contributions, but they're smaller in terms of the company size.
Right.
So just an aspect of it's a huge opportunity, like all these tens of millions of workers and all this kind of stuff. But there's also some aspect of it that they're currently using their human workers, and some human workers are 5 times, 10 times cheaper than the company, but you can still compete when you have higher paid workers. So I could have low paid bots and get efficiency. They may be better. My results be better. My valuation could go way up. But in terms of like making raw numbers of things, it will take a long time for, the bots have to get up to like 10 million, 100 million bots before the wave of, pushing humans out of the manufacturing task happens. Like I could have all Tesla factory with Tesla bot and all the suppliers with it. I'm still at 1 million. I haven't taken over even all of automotive yet, right? Because that's like several other million workers, and then there's 2 million workers in Foxconn or whatever it is. So it's making the iPhones. So the fact that I am more efficient is great for Tesla shareholders, but it doesn't mean the other guys are dead. So in terms of some things, the knockout blow doesn't necessarily happen. The people could start seeing, oh yeah, they're in the lead and they're going to keep going faster and faster. It's inevitable, but it would be, 10, 15 year, 20-year thing, because doing this, replacing all labor, even these sections is not something that happens right away. Just like for smartphone, cell phone, right? It took, 5, 10 years, whatever, for iPhone and Apple to really crush and stomp Nokia. They were still there. The valuation went down. They were hurting, but they still clung on, producing even large volumes of phones for the, Africa, India, whatever markets that they were still.
Sure. Yeah.
So
there are many things that go into the value of a product or a service besides just the human cost of labor. There's everything from the quality of the finished piece, the perception of quality, the capability of the company to market the product. In that, marketing means everything from distribution channels to advertising to sales organization, et cetera. You've got customer service. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Just having the lower price, the lower cost, what we used to call the landed cost on the factory floor, just having the lowest cost doesn't mean you're going to get the business, any business. You might not get any business.